Hello and welcome to Super Great Kids Stories. Wise tales from storytellers around the world which will make you laugh and sometimes cry. Recommended from ages 5 to 105. I'm Kim and I love stories. Hello, Super Great Kids. It's our birthday.
Super Great Kids Stories. It's the birthday. Happy birthday to us. Super Great Kids Stories.
Thanks to Toot for that little song. And thanks to you and your love of stories, what started as a very small project with Super Great David and I has grown bigger and bigger and bigger. And suddenly, here we are, we've been going for 4 whole years. And there are gazillions of children and grown-ups enjoying the stories all over the world. And next year, we'll even have a super great book of your favourite stories. Yippity-doo-dah-day. But let's get on with the business of storytelling. The story Jason Buck is going to tell you is Troll Ale. It comes from Scandanavia and it's got a rather large and friendly troll in it. A quick word to the grown-ups. This story is not scary. It's actually very funny and well told, but it does include toilet humour, including quite a few sound effects. So, if you want to discourage giggles about POO, this is probably not the story for your children. We do have another fun story this week from Greece called The Magical Sneeze. Now, Super Great Kids, I have a little question for you. Can you remember the first super great story which you ever heard? And do you know how long ago that was when you first started listening? It was probably more than half your life for some of you. Have a little think about that, and when you've decided, maybe you could sing us happy birthday while we have a quick word with the grown-ups.
Hello, Super Great Kim.
Hello, Super Great David.
Kim, I have a question.
I love questions. Fire away.
What is the best kind of story?
Well, I think the best kind of story is an old story which has been told for many years and passed on from person to person.
Ooh, that's a good answer. I thought you were going to say something specific like only Baba Yaga stories or Nancy stories or stories that have to have two-headed giants in them.
No, just a story which has been loved and passed along and told by lots of people.
Right, okay. So if we really want more people to hear stories, seems like we're going to need help from our lovely listeners.
Yes, we know these stories because people have been sharing them with each other for donkey's years. I tell you, you tell someone else, they tell someone else, and soon everyone knows the story.
You know what, Kim? I think maybe it's such a good idea that we could possibly put it into song. If you tell a friend and I tell a friend, we'll all have a super great time. And if they share one and they pass that along, a whole lot of us, a whole lot of us, a whole lot of us will have a super great time.
Hello, Super Great Kids. Could you remember your first super great story? The first traditional tale I ever heard was How the Mosquito Became, otherwise known as the Whistling Giants. I think it was the second story we ever told on our podcast. Well, Jason Buck is about to tell us a story from Scandanavia about a clever family and a big friendly troll. Are you sitting comfortably? Am I sitting comfortably? Then let the story jump out.
Hello everybody, I'm Jason Buck, and you might have heard some of my stories before on Super Great Kids Stories. Well, today, I've got a story where the thing that you think might be the baddie isn't necessarily that bad after all, but it has quite a funny ending. So, once upon a time, in a little cottage on the edge of a wood there lived a family. They were a very poor family and didn't have much to eat and didn't have many things of value in their home, but they were happy. Now it came to pass that one night the whole family sat down, the mother, the father, and the children. They all sat round the table, and the food was put out onto the table. There go the plates, there go the knives and forks, and there went what food they had to eat. Now back in those days, in the olden times, in the time this story was set, people would often make their own beer at home. Now it wouldn't be very strong beer, and in fact by boiling the water to make the beer, they actually made sure that it was safe to drink, whereas the water wasn't always clean enough to be safe to drink in those days. So this family brewed their own beer, and in the evening they would sit down and have some of that ale or beer along with their food. While they were sitting down having their dinner, everybody was tucking in, enjoying the little food that they had, when suddenly there was a knock at the door. Now it was dark outside, and already they had come in, and before they'd sat down to dinner they had put the big wooden bar across the door to protect themselves from all or anything that might try to get in that they didn't want to get in. But the loud knocking sound on the door continued, and the mother looked at the father, and the father looked at the children looked at the mother, and it went round and round the table until eventually the father stood up and said, I'll just go and see who's at the door. I wonder who that could be at this time of night. And over to the door he went. He lifted the door bar, opened the door, and outside all was dark. He expected to be looking into the eyes of a stranger or hopefully a friend, but instead the father looked out and looked straight into a pair of knees. That's right, knees, because these knees belong to legs which were very long, and the very long legs belong to somebody who was very tall, and that somebody who was very tall was a troll. Oh, the father was scared out of his wits, and if you'd been there, you would have heard his knees knocking together in fright and his teeth chattering in fear. Hello, hello, said the father as he peered out through the door and up into the night, up into the face of the troll. And the troll leaned down and brought his huge face nose to nose with the father, and oh, what a face it was. He had a huge nose like a banana sticking forward. He had a great jaw sticking out underneath with tusks and a straggly beard and straggly hair. And the father looked at the troll, and the troll looked at the father, and the troll spoke.
"Excuse me," said the troll, "but I'm having a party with some of my friends down at our troll cavern out in the mountains, and we've run out of beer. I've heard you're very good at making beer. Have you got some that I could borrow?"
Well, the father wasn't going to say no to the troll, and he said, Yes, I have one more barrel of beer left. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I'll just go and get it. And in he went, and between himself and the mother and the children, they lifted up the barrel of beer, which is very heavy because it's full of liquid, and they staggered along to the door, and they handed it out, and the troll reached down and picked it up in one hand and said,
"Thank you very much. I'll bring it back when I've finished with it."
And off he went. Well, the family came back in, the door was shut, the door was barred, and they sat down to dinner, and they thought, phew, how lucky we were that the troll didn't want to gobble us up. And they continued their meal, and from that day onwards they talked about the night the troll came to borrow a barrel of beer. But it was 1 year to the day when the family were sitting down at their table. The plates had been put out, and the knives and forks, and they were sitting down and eating what little food they had, when there was a knock at the door. And when the father went over and nervously lifted the door bar off, opened the door, he looked out straight into a pair of very familiar knees. It was the troll again. Oh, my goodness me. And he looked up and the troll looked down at him, and the troll bent down and they got his huge banana nose and went nose to nose with the man and looked into his eyes, and the man looked into his eyes. And the troll said, "You lent me a barrel of beer. I brought it back. But this time, as a thank you for lending me your beer, I'm going to give you a magical barrel of troll beer. This beer is delicious, and if you keep opening the tap, it will keep pouring out beer and will never run out." "Never run out?" said the man. "That's right. Oh," said the troll, "but don't look in the top, otherwise that will spoil the magic." And the troll passed the barrel over in one hand, and the father and the mother and the children all took the barrel, and staggered back inside. "Thanks very much," said the troll. "I'll go now. Bye." And off the troll went. Well, the door was shut, and the bar was put in place. And, well, they thought, troll beer? Really, troll beer? Now, as you probably know, and as I definitely know, trolls are nasty, smelly, disgusting things. Very big, very strong, but very stupid. However, as well as making glorious porridge, they make delicious beer. And so the father poured himself a big cup of beer. Ooh, and he tasted it. It was delicious. And so he put a pot of beer in front of his wife and poured another one and had delicious beer. And he was right, the troll was right. No matter how much they poured out, there was always beer left in the barrel. Beer, 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 day in, day out. And in fact, now that they no longer had to make beer, because it was always there and wouldn't run out, they could do other things with their time. And so they managed to save some money and enough to employ a young woman as a housemaid to help clean and cook. Now she saw the magical barrel of beer, and she saw that it never ran out. Beer, beer, beer. Now she wanted to know how this worked. Don't look in the top, they told her. But oh, do you think she was curious? Why, yes, of course she was curious. Do you think she looked in the top? Yes, she did look in the top. As soon as the family were out, one day the maid went over and took off the top of the barrel and looked in to see what magical liquid was inside. But instead of being a magical liquid, it was full of toads and snakes and slugs and horrible, horrible, disgusting things. Oh, quick! On went the top again, and she pretended she hadn't seen it. But that evening, when the family came in and they sat down to dinner and they went to pour out their dinner beer, instead of beer, oh dear, this time when a pot was put beneath the tap and the tap was opened, it wasn't a pot of beer. It was a pot of poo. Another one underneath. Oh, more poo. More poo, more poo. No more delicious troll ale, now just merely pots of poo. Oh dearie me. Well, obviously they couldn't eat or drink that, but the family wondered for a bit, and they thought, well, that's the end of our free ale. I suppose we have to go back to brewing our own. Then the mother said, well, do you know what? Do you know what we could do? This is an awful lot of poo, and it looks like very good quality poo. And instead of throwing it away, instead they sold it to the farmers and the gardeners who lived locally as manure. And if you don't know what manure is, it's animal poo. And farmers and gardeners use it to put onto the fields and gardens, and it helps the plants grow. So from that day forward, they suddenly became the sellers of the finest garden and farm manure in the land. And pot after pot they would pour it out. Poo, poo, poo. But you know what? There might have been poo in a barrel, but they all lived happily ever after.
Ah, thanks, Jason. Jason is very clever at voices and sound effects, isn't he? I quite like the fact that the family didn't have a big tantrum and chase the maid down the street for spoiling all their ale. Instead, they thought, how can we make this problem into something good, and how can we make use of this stuff now that we can't drink it anymore? And they turned it into a happy ending. Jason is good at voices too, isn't he? Didn't you like his troll? Do you like doing funny voices? Can you do a troll voice? If you liked that story, Jason's got several other stories on our website, like The Old Woman and the Pig, and The Three Billy Goats Gruff, and The Luck Child. Oh, and he's going to be telling scary, not scary fairy tales with me online on November the 16th. Save that date. More details about that on our website, supergreatkidsstories.com. That's it for this birthday bonus. I hope you liked our birthday story. And don't forget, there are 2 stories for everyone this week. The other story is called The Magical Sneeze, and it's from Greece, and it has lots of animals in it, and it's a good one for you to try and tell. Keep telling your stories and singing your songs. Bye for now. This podcast was produced at Wardour Studios in fabulous Fitzrovia in London.